Every story needs a villain and a figure to blame, and a symbol for everything the main characters don't want to face within themselves. In religious stories, that figure is sometimes called Satan. In other stories and myths, it has been called Lucifer, Set, Prometheus, or the big bad wolf. But these names are not really about good versus evil, they are about projection. As I have said before, the scapegoat is the oldest archetype in the world. And long before Satan became a household name, cultures across the world told stories of figures who were cast out, demonized, and punished. In Greek mythology, Prometheus was a rebellious titan who defied the gods by stealing fire from Mount Olympus and giving it to humanity. The gods, especially Zeus, wanted to keep humanity ignorant and dependent. So, for his defiance, Prometheus was chained to a rock where an eagle would eat his liver daily, only for it to regenerate and be eaten again and again and again. Prometheus's constant pain was the price of awakening others and having the courage to challenge oppressive leaders. The story of Lucifer as a fallen angel isn't actually found in the Bible in the way that most people believe. The name Lucifer only appears once in Isaiah, and it was used in a poetic way to insult the king of Babylon by calling him the morning star to mock his pride before his downfall. Later, when the Bible was translated into Latin, Lucifer, which means light bringer, became associated with this passage. And over time, Christian writers merged this with other stories, like Satan's rebellion and the serpent in Eden and the war in heaven from Revelation. And this created the modern image of Lucifer as the devil. And Lucifer's so-called crime was refusing to submit to authority. In ancient Egyptian mythology, Set was the god of chaos, storms, and the wind, but he wasn't always seen as evil. Set represented the necessary forces of strength, survival, and protection against threats. However, over time, he became known for killing his brother Osiris, which was a symbolic act of disruption and betrayal. And because of this, later Egyptian traditions began to associate him with evil. After Set killed his brother Osiris, Set was cast out and banished to the desert wilderness. But Set didn't die there. Instead, he became god of the wilderness, and he ruled over storms, the desert, and wild animals. In the earliest biblical writings, Satan was never described as a fallen angel ruling over hell. The original Hebrew word for Satan meant the accuser or the adversary. And this figure wasn't acting in opposition to God. He worked within God's court and he tested human beings by exposing their weaknesses. In the book of Job, for example, Satan appears as a kind of prosecutor, challenging Job's faith to see if it was genuine or dependent on blessings. It wasn't until much later that Satan's image began to change. Over centuries, religious traditions blended together different symbolic figures, like the serpent from the Garden of Eden and the rebellious morning star Lucifer from Isaiah and the dragon from Revelation. And these originally separate stories were merged into one, creating the Satan we know today. These figures all tell the same story. The one who dares to disrupt is the villain. For real people and not the mythological figures, this archetype is painful, and you get told that you are too honest, too loud, too questioning, too different. And families do this, religions do this, society does this. And it's isolating and it forces you to question your own goodness. And in extreme cases, it can shatter your own sense of self. The truth about scapegoats is that they can see what others can't. And people who are scapegoated or villainized see dysfunction first, and they name what no one else will name, and they say what no one else wants to say. Prometheus saw the gods as selfish, and he saw humanity's potential, and he brought them fire so that they could progress. Both Lucifer and Satan refused to crumble under extreme control, and Set stood alone in the wilderness, and he survived against all odds. Matrix systems of control, whether they are political, familial, religious, whatever they are, they all depend on conformity, and they hate truth tellers who break their matrix illusion. And I'm not saying that these scapegoat archetypes like Satan are there to be worshipped or anything like that, but they are there for us to understand them, and they are mirrors of humanity's collective shadow and symbols of the parts of us that refuse to be controlled and shamed. And if you identify with any of these figures, I'm here to tell you that you were never a problem. The good news is, once you've been cast out and once you've lost the approval of others, you're free. Scapegoats are ahead of the curve because they have already accepted what others are still avoiding. And that gives them the ability to notice the cracks in the system long before it collapses. And it means that you have an advantage that most people never get. You don't need permission to be free. The soul trap keeps people stuck through fear and shame and attachment to false stability. But the ones who have been rejected or misunderstood or pushed to the side have learned how to build themselves from nothing, and they have learned how to trust their own voice over external approval. And that is how you escape the system. And this is the hidden lesson that is woven into these stories like Prometheus and Lucifer and Set and Satan as archetypes. They teach us that we do not need to be saved, but we do need to be whole. We need to be whole enough to stand alone. We need to be whole enough to survive exile. And we need to be whole enough to free ourselves from anything that is holding us back. Thanks for watching.